Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, we're going to be breaking down what, in my opinion, is one of the upper echelon events on the PGA Tour, the 2025 Travelers Championship. Here in this episode, we are going to tell you everything you need to know about this golf tournament, including talking about the golf course itself, TPC River Highlands, which, in my opinion, is one of the 10 best golf courses on the PGA Tour. In fact, that actually might be a good idea for a full episode one day. Got some time over the summer. Maybe we might have to do a full episode where we just rank out all of the courses on the PGA Tour rotation. Might do that. But we're going to talk about why this is such a great golf course and such a great event. And then we're going to take a look at the stats and the numbers and see if we can identify some guys that might be some great plays in DFS betting and one and done here this week. And we're going to do it all in 30 minutes or less guaranteed. Now, if you have not already, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That way you can be with us for the rest of all of our golf content this summer, as well as all of our best ball for both NFL and college football content that's going to be coming your way as well, including some live drafts. The only way you'll know when those go down is if you are subscribed to the channel, and we are closing in on our goal of 1,000 subscribers. We are only 16 away, y'all, so help me out, help me hit my goal, and hit that subscribe button if you have not already. Now, we have a guarantee to start to complete this episode in 30 minutes or less, but don't start those timers just yet, because first we've got to break down the U.S. Open. And so if you don't want to hear this U.S. Open recap, check the time codes and just go straight to our Travelers Championship preview. But y'all, we do this every major. We got to kind of have a little bit of a debrief and a little bit of, discussion about what went down with this major championship, right? So the U.S. Open, won by JJ Spawn. Very happy for JJ Spawn. By all accounts, seems like a great guy. Really grinded to get where he's at on the PGA Tour. Just a sign that, just really one of the cool things about the sport of golf, right, is like a guy that's just purely an average player, or somebody you can have their entire life changed by 1 week of golf, right? It's a pretty cool story. But I gotta say, all in all, and this is going to be some hot takes here in this section, y'all. All in all, Oakmont's not my favorite U.S. Open venue. I just don't find it to be super duper appealing. I just find it to be that the USGA has such an obsession with making a winning score as close to par or above par, as they possibly can. And I just think that the way that they have to do that at Oakmont really does kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It kind of compromises the integrity of the golf course and the golf that the golfers are playing, because Oakmont is not that long. Oakmont does not have any trees. Oakmont does not have any water. And so there's just really, the way that you have to make the golf course play difficult is you have to go out the rough such to a length that you just can't really hit out of it at all. You just have to pitch it out into the fairway, and you have to roll the greens and fairways to be so firm and so fast that you just can't really put a shot where you want to put it. And to me, that doesn't really, lend itself to separating the most skillful golfers from the rest. Yeah, I get it. There's guys out there that enjoy watching this carnage, enjoy watching the pros struggle, but I just don't think that that's a way to measure great golf, right? To me, it was fun at the Memorial 2 weeks ago to see this thick rough where guys are still trying to hit shots towards the green and try to pull off miracle shots out of this thick rough, as opposed to Oakmont where they're just pitching out into the fairways. And really, it kind of just became a tournament of attrition as opposed to a separation of actually who was the most skilled golfer. Now, what I also feel like was the way the weather turned out on Sunday, it really punished the guys who were out there at the very end. You just never really saw some guys play the same after the weather delay. We all saw the Sam Burns situation that he had. I believe it was on hole 15. And look, I got to be honest, I think he should have gotten relief from that. I was watching that, and you could see in his practice swings, water's just splashing up the whole time, right? If I was playing a weekend golf game with my friends and there was no money or nothing on the line, I'm just kicking my ball out of that and not even asking. If there was money on the line, then if my buddy's asking for it, then yeah, he can get relief from that, because it just seemed like a very poor situation to hit a shot from. But what I will say, though, is that Sam Burns, you got to be able to show up and hit that golf shot once they don't give you relief. You got to be able to have the mental fortitude to just kind of shut that out, compartmentalize it, and, show up and hit the shot. And he wasn't able to do that. And it likely cost him the golf tournament, because he was never the same after that. Right now, one thing I will say is, one thing we can really kind of see at the end is that Colonial Country Club actually ended up being a really good comp for this place, ironically enough. JJ Spawn had a good finish at Colonial. Robert McIntyre, pretty good at Colonial. Scotty Sheffer always good at Colonial. Sam Burns has a win at Colonial. Ben Griffin has a win at Colonial. Like, you just saw Colonial guys kind of end up being near the top. You also saw really good Lynx players rise to the top as well. Thinking about like Adam Scott, Brooks Koepka, John Rahm's good at Open Championships, Tyrrell Hatton, Robert McIntyre. Those guys are all good at Open Championships, right? So that's just kind of another thing that might be to keep in mind next time the U.S. Open goes to Oakmont. Colonial Country Club and Lynx golf players. So if I'm still doing content back in 2034, when the PGA Tour goes back to Oakmont for the U.S. Open, then that might be something to keep in mind. Now, a few quick takeaways. So one, I saw enough out of Brooks Koepka that I'm going to be on him at Portrush. So Brooks was a small part of my DFS player pool in DraftKings this week, just because he was super low owned and he is Brooks Koepka. And like, he really struck the ball really well. Gained over 9 strokes tee to green, just lost a little bit with the putter, was hitting the driver well, above average distance, above average accuracy. Like, yeah, that's like vintage Brooks. He just didn't make enough 15-foot to 20-foot putts, which is what he does when he wins major championships. So I'm going to be back on Brooks when it goes to Portrush, and I hope that nobody else is going to find that out as well. Other takeaway is we talked about this on the Monday show, but we've continued to talk about this whole season about the tier 2 PGA Tour golfer, right? Like, from pretty much everybody outside of the big 4 down to like Shane Lowry, even I would consider tier 2, right? Like, just that tier was awful in this U.S. Open. Patrick Cantlay, Shane Lowry, Sepp Straka, Justin Thomas, Ludwig Oberg, all missing the cut. Colin Morikawa was a complete non-factor, right? Like, they kind of just continued the theme that I've kind of been talking about all year, where this tier PGA Tour golfer continues to underwhelm. And it's going to be a really kind of inflection point on them, because a lot of these guys now are going to have to fight to make the Ryder Cup team the second half of the season. A lot of these guys are going to be coming to courses where they have historically good course history, and it's going to be time for a lot of these guys to put up or shut up or end up being passed by guys and no longer being considered in that second tier of golfer behind the likes of Scotty and Rory. Now, let's talk about specifically what I got right and what I got wrong. So I played a lot of Robert McIntyre. He was not a core play for me, but he was right below it, and was super happy I did. Like, just a great total driver of the ball who was coming in with good form. Like, we could see this coming. I think that this guy is going to win a major championship at some point in his career. He might win at Portrush at the Open Championship. But I just really like his game, really like what he's doing. And honestly, I think he's in a really good spot at the Travelers Championship as well. He was not a core play for me, but he was one of my highest exposure players. Got that one right. I also had Sam Burns as a core play, which I was getting ready to victory lap before he kind of, collapsed on the back 9, but still a T7 out of Sam Burns. If you told me I was getting that pre-tournament, I'd tell you that was a pretty good read to have him as a core play. And then also, I had a lot of my value plays correct. Like, I had Cam Young in my player pool. Ben Griffin was in my player pool. Even further down the board, I had a lot of Ryan Fox, Victor Perez, Emiliano Grillo, some Thomas Dietrich as well, some Max Grazerman as well. I kind of felt like I had a really good read at the bottom of the board here on this one. There were some misses that I had, though. Like, I had Tony Finau as an outright bet and as a core play. We'll take a made cut. We'll take a T38, but, he never really had a chance to win the tournament. That was a little bit disappointing. One of the other biggest things I got wrong was Akshay Bhatia, who did miss the cut at +10. I thought this was a great setup for Akshay, and he just didn't bring the game he normally brings, right? Like, he's normally a fairway finder, didn't hit enough of them this week. He's also a really good putter. The golf ball didn't bring it this week, and so that kind of killed him, even though the approach and the around the green play, which are not the strengths of his game, were in fact pretty good. Then after that, I was super wrong on Bryson. Right? Like, I did not see any scenario in which Bryson was going to miss the cut, but that kind of lends itself to what we were talking about earlier with Oakmont, right? Like, they just had to create this kind of cartoony setup with the thick rough and the fast greens, and some guys just didn't deal well with it, and Bryson was one of them. And this is one of the worst putting performances of Bryson's career. He's generally a really good putter of the golf ball. But unfortunately, like, our time for Bryson has kind of came and gone this season, because I don't envision myself playing him at Portrush. He's a very bad links player. And so I really just don't really see that being a great week for Bryson. And all in all, I was super all in on the big 4 of Scotty, Rory, Bryson, and Rahm this week, like on one of those 4 guys winning. And none of those 4 guys ever really had a real chance to win the golf tournament, right? Like, which is kind of crazy to me. And so really what that ended up happening was, like, for a lot of your middling PGA Tour players, this was probably your best chance to win a major, right? Like, how many majors are both Scotty and Rory and Rahm and Bryson? How many majors are all four of them all going to be off of their game and not on their A game, right? It's not going to be many. So I think that a lot of guys really missed their opportunity. I think if you're Victor Hovland, you got to really be feeling like this was a missed opportunity for you, because you had everything kind of go your way to win a major championship, and he just wasn't able to win it. For Victor, it was really just the putter. Like, he missed a lot of putts, it felt like, watching him all weekend. And if he just had a few of those putts, he was probably able to win the golf tournament. Now, from a DFS perspective, what probably ended up being your best bet this week was like a Scotty or Rahm start with Victor Hovland as the second man in, and then just hope to fire enough bullets and be right on the the value plays, right? Like JJ Spawn was a value play that was not very highly owned. I don't think I would have ever gotten to JJ Spawn this week. Like, looking back at it, he was 26th in my model, which was like good, but I really felt like, looking at his form coming in, I felt like he was at the tail end of a good run, not peaking in any way or like crescendoing towards this win. So I do think that was kind of a random outcome, but props to anybody that played him, props to anybody that bet him, because he ended up getting the job done. But he would have been a value play in DFS. I believe he was in the 6K range, as was Robert McIntyre, as was Cameron Young, and then Tyrrell Hatton was like one of the lowest owned plays in the 7K range. So really just starting off with Scotty or Rahm and Hovland, and just having the rest of those guys in your lineup would have ended up being the move. And it doesn't even really boil down to like a big ownership thing, because McIntyre was decently owned. Hovland, Cam Young was decently owned, right? Sam Burns was certainly highly owned. So like, I don't necessarily think it ended up being a week to play chalk or fade chalk in DFS, but it just ended up being a week where you really need to avoid the tier 2 golfer that missed the cut. You had to have picked Scotty or Rahm or Rory over Bryson, and then just hope to get it right with your value plays. That's kind of how the DFS slate ended up turning out. But anyway, enough about the U.S. Open. Let's go ahead and take a quick breather, and then we're going to talk everything Travelers Championship. You can go ahead and get those stopwatches ready, 30 minutes or less. All right. So as I said in the intro, I really do enjoy TPC River Highlands. I think this is a quality golf course that produces some fun golf here, some unique holes here. And I do think that it's one of the best courses on the PGA Tour. What I don't like is the signature event format. Like, we've been over this time and time again. I don't think anybody asked for this format where we have 72 golfers and no cut. Like, the way this course is set up, this is a course where anybody can compete and can win. And by making it a signature event, you're kind of lessening that impact a little bit. But it's also a signature event where like everybody is playing on an equal playing field that's in the field. So if there ever was a signature event where you would kind of get in out of the box winner, it would be this event, which for the most part, signature event winners tend to be pretty chalky, or pretty predictable, pretty low odds on the betting boards. But if there were one where you could see a long shot, it would be this one, because this is an event where nobody's starting on second base. Everybody's starting off with an even playing field. And why might that be? Well, it is because TPC River Highlands is actually the shortest golf course on the PGA Tour, which is kind of crazy, right? But it just so happens that, that lack of distance kind of creates some really unique ways to play this golf course. So with it being the shortest golf course on the PGA Tour, there are a decent amount of dog legs. And so really, you're not gaining a huge advantage with driving distance here at this golf course. You're not really losing a whole lot with a lack of distance either, because it just means you're going to have a 140-yard approach shot in as opposed to a 100-yard approach shot in. It's not that big of a difference, right? Now, with that being said, this course does have some pretty thick rough. It does have a legitimate missed fairway penalty. It is generally pretty tree lined. And so what you see a lot of here at this golf course at TPC River Highlands is you see guys pull less than driver off the tee. You see a lot of driving irons and 3-woods and hybrids off the tee here this week. It's just kind of like a big characteristic. And so I definitely would compare this course off the tee to other club down courses off the tee. Kind of think of like Pebble Beach, maybe Copperhead would kind of fit in that. Colonial to a degree, but Colonial's getting more and more driver heavy. But definitely golf courses where you're not just going to wail away with driver blindly on every single hole. You're going to be very calculated and play to your spots, because if you can hit your spot off the tee, this course then becomes an approach contest. The greens are tiny. They're minuscule, super small compared to what we saw last week at Oakmont. And so the name of the game is going to be not only hitting the greens, but giving yourself a situation where you can make birdies. This course generally plays fairly easy. We saw the scoring average hit all-time lows last year here at this course. And so you're going to want to make sure that you're going to be putting the balls close to the hole as possible and making as many of those birdie putts as possible. But with that being said, this is not just like a normal cookie cutter short course. This is a Pete Dye design. So it has a lot of the elements that we see in Pete Dye courses, which are generally pretty slopey greens. They're not just flat like we saw, like at TBC Toronto or at TPC Craig Ranch. They've got some slope to them. They've got some undulations. So good putters are going to be able to separate themselves here, and you're going to have a good putting week this week if you do want to win. We also mentioned the dog legs, the thick bunkers, the use of trees. Like this is like a Pete Dye design through and through. And so guys who have played well, other Pete Dye designs like Harbortown or Sawgrass do in fact get a boost for it this week. But like I said, I love this golf course. I think it's got some fun holes. I think it's a unique stop for the PGA Tour. Ever since they kind of cut out, some of the first few FedEx Cup playoff events, we have kind of seen less and less golf in the Northeast. And so this is like the only golf course left that's in the Northeast on the PGA Tour. So for this week, in terms of our key stats, here's what we are looking at. Strokes gained approach, first and foremost. You're going to have to win this golf tournament with your irons and with your putter, but you cannot lose it off the tee. And so I do value total driving this week. When you look at the different winners here, I'm talking Scotty Scheffler, I'm talking Keegan Bradley, talking Harris English. They're all good total drivers of the golf ball who aren't, really bad in one category, distance or accuracy. And don't think that this is a course where bombers can't win, because we have seen Bubba Watson and Dustin Johnson win at this golf course. And we've even seen Jordan Spieth win here, who I would not consider a great driver of the golf ball at the time that he won. But, you're just keeping it in play off the tee. So total driving is the stat that I would be using. I'm also looking at putting on bent grass, or if you have the option to do bent POA grass. Technically, these are bent POA greens, but from what I can tell, they appear to be more bent grass than POA. I'm not an agronomy expert, but I do know what POA looks like. POA tends to be a little bumpier, even East Coast POA, which is what we saw last week at Oakmont. I do think that these are more closer to bent grass, so I'll be looking at bent and bent POA this week if you can. In terms of proximity buckets, with this being a short golf course, this is going to be a lot of short approach shots. So any proximity buckets that you can look at less than 150 yards, which kind of ties into, I also want to look big time at comp course performance here this week. And those comp courses, in no particular order, these are all courses that are not super driver heavy off the tee, where you have to be in the right position after shot one to then win the event with your approach play. And those are Harbortown, TPC Deer Run, TPC Sawgrass, Colonial, and Sedgefield. Kind of anecdotally, you do see a little bit of crossover in leaderboards of TPC Scottsdale, Wailea, and Sea Island, the RSM Classic. So I would consider those three kind of ancillary comps, but my main comps, Harbortown, Deer Run, Sawgrass, Colonial, and Sedgefield. All right, let's go ahead and take a quick breather, and then we are going to dive down the rabbit hole. All right, if you're new or if you've been with us all season, when I say dive down the rabbit hole, I'm not referring to an actual rabbit hole, obviously. I'm referring to the rabbit hole, which is a tool from BetSperts Golf that allows you to use all different kinds of filters and conditions in order to really weed out the exact micro skills that you want from golfers heading into a. And kind of tie all those together and see who ranks out the best. It has helped me get onto guys that I might not have otherwise found. And it's been super helpful for me this year in having a good year with golf DFS and golf betting. So I highly suggest you check it out. It's the best golf data site that I have found, and I've tried quite a few. So here's what we use for our rabbit hole stats this week. First off, we wanted to look at total driving. As I mentioned, it kind of combines distance and accuracy. So just in the calendar year 2025, who are the best total drivers of the golf ball in the field? Scotty Scheffler, Corey Connors, Kevin Yu, Robert McIntyre, and Ludwig Oberg. Then I wanted to look at strokes gained off the tee for two instances. First strokes gained off the tee, I wanted to look at less than driver courses. Best in the field, Rory McIlroy, Scotty Scheffler, Victor Hovland, Ludwig Oberg, and Cameron Young. Then I wanted to look at strokes gained off the tee on courses with a high missed fairway penalty, because this one does have a high missed fairway penalty. So that affects strategy, definitely affects how your decision making off the tee, right? Best in the field in that regard: Scheffler, McIlroy, Oberg, Morikawa, Connors. Then I wanted to look at just basic strokes gained approach for the calendar year 2025. Best in the field: Scheffler, Straka, Lowry, Morikawa, Hop. Then I wanted to look at overall just the key proximity bucket this week of 100 yards to 150. Best in the field: Morikawa, Henley, Thomas, Straka, Connors. All right. Then I wanted to look at two different approach types. Like I said, it's a big approach week. Also, a lot of my model factors in approach play. The first type of approach play that I wanted to look at was approach play on short courses because those tend to give you the shorter approach shots. Best in the field: Scheffler, Straka, Lowry, Justin Thomas, and Tom Hoagie. Top five. Then when you filter out and just make an approach on courses with small greens, which is again another situation where, much like with what we did off the tee, it affects your decision making of how aggressive you get to be, your margins for error, all different kinds of stuff like that. Right? So I wanted to look at that specific stat. Best in the field: Scheffler, Hoagie, Thomas, Akshay Bhatia, and Sepp Straka as your top five. Then strokes gained putting on bent and bent polo grass. Best in the field: Max Fraserman, Mackenzie Hughes, Danny McCarthy, Kerry Hall, and Jason Day. Anecdotally, I don't think that you can win this tournament with a poor putting week. With that being said, though, that doesn't mean that a poor putter historically can't have a good putting week here. So I don't think that necessarily just because a guy ranks out poorly on this stat means that you should just cut him off from the player pool. But generally speaking, we're going to need somebody to gain strokes putting. And you've got to have shown me the ability that you can do that somewhere along the line. Same with approach play. Like you have to have shown me the ability to gain multiple strokes on approach if you want to win this week, because that's what's going to be necessary. This is the course where you're going to separate with your approach play. All right, next, I wanted to look at kind of a few strokes gained total. First, courses that play easy to average, because that's what we're going to be looking at this week. It's not going to be above average in difficulty. I can guarantee you that. Best in the field: Scheffler, Cantlay, Schauffele, McIlroy, Finau. Then I wanted to look at courses that are short, specifically: Scheffler, Thomas, Schauffele, McIlroy, and then I wanted to look at strokes gained total at Pete Dye courses because, like I said, there's some courses. All the Pete Dye courses have a lot of architectural similarities. Best in the field: Scheffler, Schauffele, Thomas, Harmon, Cantlay. And then lastly, strokes gained total at that list of comp course that I rattled off earlier. Best in the field: Scheffler, Thomas, Henley, Cantlay, Harmon. Y'all did notice how that same five, pretty much, along with a Rory, was pretty much the top five for all those strokes gained total stats. It's kind of wild, right? Anyway, you throw all that into a custom model, and what you get should come out as zero surprise. Scotty Scheffler is my number one golfer. And I think if you were to make a model this week and Scheffler were not number one, that'd probably be a pretty big red flag. Like, he just is so good at golf. Yeah, I know that's like Captain Obvious statement, right? But you just look at what he does, and he's just so consistent, so smooth, just good at everything. At the U.S. Open, it was his worst driving week in a long, long time, and he still came in T7 at a tournament where he missed short putt after short putt after short putt. Well, he played this tournament last year, right after what I would consider a disappointing finish at the U.S. Open, right? And he ended up winning that golf tournament, right? Like T41 at the U.S. Open, which was very poor, won this event by really doing it with his ball striking and with his putter gaining 26 strokes per round. Like Scotty Scheffler is probably the most likely guy to win this golf tournament. I don't feel like that's a bold statement, but it's a fact. He's the best player in the field. I don't think it's particularly close. I'm not going to bet him because I don't believe in betting outright golfers at low odds. But we're going to talk about what it means for DFS, and I definitely lean with him being the best player in the field, and I don't think it's particularly close. Number two is Xander Schauffele. So let's have the Xander discussion real quick. So Xander is a traditionally well-rounded golfer, right? And what you see this year on his profile is ever since he started playing after the injury at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, is you see in his profile pop up some red every single week, right? It might be off the tee one week, off the putter another week, approach another week, around the green another week, right? There's just red that just kind of prevents him from winning every single week. Well, last week at the U.S. Open, he was never in contention, but he finished T12 and he gained strokes in every single category. That's not easy, but it's also the Xander that we know and love, which, by the way, is a Xander that has won this event before and has not finished outside of the top 20 since the global pandemic, since we were all wearing masks back in 2020. So you have Xander showing up at a course he has a lot of familiarity with his game kind of trending towards vintage Xander. I think this is a really good spot for Xander Schauffele. And he's number two in my model and certainly number two in my mind here this week. 3 and 4 are guys that I'm not gonna be playing in DFS, even though they showed up here. Colin Morikawa is 3. Tommy Fleetwood is 4. Morikawa had an incredible week on approach last week at the US Open, gained almost 10 strokes for the event, but he gave all of it back with the putter and finished T23. Y'all, I've also said this with Colin Morikawa before. We see him all the time show up to courses that he should play well at, that seem to really suit his game, that seem to favor accuracy over distance, that seem to factor in approach play. He just never gets the job done at those courses. You look at Harbour Town this year, where he was outside the top 40 in an elevated event. That's the kind of performance I'm talking about. I just don't understand Morikawa. I I'm just not gonna be on him this week. Just putting it out there. Like, I think that this is a course that on paper should suit his game very well. He anecdotally does not play well at Pete Dye courses, though. Just not his best spot. Like Pete Dye courses, I really feel like you do have to be able to move the ball both directions off the tee. He does not have that ability. He only shoots a fade. Um, yeah, I'm not gonna try to poke more holes in his armor. Like, he's great. He's obviously very good at golf, but just not for me this week. Tommy Fleetwood, number 4. I'm gonna be off of Fleetwood again. I don't like Fleetwood at birdie fests. I like Fleetwood at difficult conditions, so this is not gonna be the spot. Rory McIlroy is 5. This is another guy that I'm not gonna be playing in DFS. I'm just not gonna change Rory. Just I've mentioned here on the podcast before that I do teach high school. I coach high school sports currently, boys basketball and girls flag football. As my high schoolers would say, the vibes are off with Rory. Like, he's just being really abrasive to the media. He just doesn't look like the same Rory with the bounce in his step that we saw heading into the Masters. He lost strokes on approach in 4 straight, and this is a course where approach play is paramount. Even though he has great history at this event, even though he shows up well in my model, bad vibes for me. I'm just not gonna be on Rory this week. Number 6 is Patrick Cantlay. So let's go ahead and lump in Patrick Cantlay and Justin Thomas together. Justin Thomas is in the model. Both of these guys have great history at this golf course, have a really good setup of skills for this golf course, but are not coming in the best of form. So this kind of does beg the question: do you want to go with course fit or you go with form? Um, Cantlay, I might add, also has great history. He's never finished outside the top. Justin Thomas, I feel like, is at his best at less than driver golf courses because his driver's the worst club in his bag right now. And if I was his caddy, I wouldn't even pack a driver at this golf course. Just tee it up with 3 wood all week, Justin. Like, you can do it. And, don't let you hurt yourself by just swinging driver where you should. And that's how he won Harbour Town. He didn't have a whole lot of drivers at Harbour Town. So Cantlay and Thomas, poor recent form. I don't think they're going to be highly owned in DFS, but I'm going to be playing them just because of how well they fit the course. Corey Connors is 7th in my model. He withdrew from the U.S. Open with a back injury, or not a back injury, a wrist injury prior to Sunday. Y'all, that's bad. Wrist injuries for golfers are like one of the worst things you can have. I'm not going to be playing him for that reason. 8th in my model is Russell Henley. Y'all, I think this is a great Russell Henley golf course. I believe Russell Henley might be a core play for me in DFS this week. I believe he might be an outright bet for me this week. This is a guy who has won a signature event already this year. Like Colin Morikawa's beat Scotty Sheffer one time all year, and he's like $10,000. Whereas Russell Henley has won a signature event where he beat Morikawa and Sheffer. Finished 5th at the Memorial, 10th at the U.S. Open. Like, he's coming in good form. This is a great Russell Henley golf course. We love Russell Henley shorter tracks. So I do think this is a really good spot for him. He's probably going to be a core play. We've already mentioned Justin Thomas 9, Ludwig Oberg 10. I'm going to be going back to Ludwig this week also. You look at last week at the U.S. Open. Apparently, according to like some Swedish on Twitter, he had like migraines going on. I don't know if he did or not, but he missed the cut on the number, and the strokes gain numbers actually look pretty good. Approach play has been back. He's gained it 3 straight. That's what we like to see from Ludwig when he's at his best. He's gaining with his irons. And I think anecdotally, he's a pretty good wedge player. Like we saw a year ago, he won the RSM Classic at Sea Island, which was off of a lot of wedge play, right? Like, I just think this is a pretty good profile for Ludwig, and I'm going to be on him heading into this. Anyway, that is the top 10 for my model. But I'm going to be changing this all week long. So if you would like to know who makes my final model, the final top 10, every Wednesday, head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/MikeMoneyPicks. Post the top 10 for my model, as well as all of my cool plays, both DraftKings and FanDuel, and a full write-up in terms of my strategy and why my model is the way it is and why my core plays are the way they are. If you want access to that, head on over to the Patreon, patreon.com/MikeSmoneyPicks. You'll also get access to all of my tools and ranks for best ball drafts for NFL and college football all summer long. And those are going to be getting updated all summer long. So if you want those, Patreon, head on over to that as well. Also, if you're just sitting there like, hey, I like this guy, I want to support him financially, a lot of the things that I do here are financed by the Patreon. So if you would like to show any financial support, head on over there. Also, if you want any more information from me, you can follow me on Twitter at Mike's Money Picks, and you can also join the Fantasy Corner Discord. The Fantasy Corner Discord is a community of a bunch of really smart, really good people who play DFS for a lot of different sports. And if you would like any help, tips, advice, looking to bounce ideas off of people, Fantasy Corner Discord is a great place to go, and it is 100% free. There's a lot of companies out there that charge a lot of money for a Discord. The one I am in, I am just a contributing member. It is not my Discord, but I love being a part of it. I advertise it, and if you're just looking for a community to be a part of, it's a great place to go. Highly recommend it. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a quick breather, and then let's take a look at the board for DFS. All right, so here's the deal when it comes to Scotty Sheffer and DFS this week, right? So I think this is a good golf course for Scotty Sheffer, right? We talked about how this is a place where you're really going to want to separate with your approach play. It favors accuracy over distance off the tee. It's really just going to be about keeping the ball in play off the tee, right? Great setup for Scheffler. Even though it's a short golf course, like we know Scheffler's great with long irons, but even at short golf courses, he can do it, right? And so then, after the course is good for Scheffler, the next question we have to really ask ourselves is does playing Scotty Scheffler in DFS inhibit the rest of my life, right? And if the answer to that question is yes, then don't play Scotty Scheffler. If the answer to that question is no, then you play Scotty Scheffler. And so here is what that has been meaning this season. This season, what the general trend has been is if you play Scotty Scheffler, you can't play any of what I call the tier 2 golfers, which are generally priced above 9K. Right? Like the salary Scheffler's at, you can't really build out a lineup where your next guy in is more, right? And this year, that strategy of playing Scheffler and skipping the 9K range and sometimes skipping the 8K range has been very profitable because, as I mentioned, the whole tier 2 PGA Tour golfer that I've been calling them for the last month or so have been massive underachievers this year, and they just haven't really won anything of significance at all. Right? Like Rory had his wins early in the season. Oberg won the Genesis. Straka is now in this tier because he has 2 wins. Like everybody else has just been a massive letdown, right? And so the question is are these guys going to continue to be a massive letdown yet again, or are they going to come into a course where they have good course history and good course fits and play well? So here is what my strategy is going to be. Scotty Scheffler is going to be a big time play for me because I have been working on the entire premise the last few months that tier of golf is an underachieving tier, and I don't like playing in DFS. But I'm also going to be playing some lineups where I'm afforded the luxury that I don't or that I get from not playing Sheffield, which is if you start off with a Xander or a Cantlay or an Oberg or a Thomas, then you can get 2, maybe even 3 of those guys. So to me, that is going to be the prevailing strategy. I either want to play Scheffler and skip that range entirely, or I want to play 2 or 3 of them in the same lineup. As we mentioned, I'm already at Rory from Morikawa. So it's going to come down to in my non-Scheffler lineups, is it going to be Schauffele, Cantlay, Oberg, Thomas as the first guy in? Now, as the second guy in, y'all, I love Sepp Straka this week. I love Sepp Straka this week. You're looking at a guy that he let a lot of people down as chalk in DFS at the U.S. Open. I did not play him a lot. He was in my pool, but I had a specific rule. I didn't want to play him in my Scotty lineups because I thought that Scotty Straka was going to be a very common start, right? Now, what Sepp has done is he's just been great. He's turned into a great iron player. There's no way around it. Like, he's just been one of the best iron players on the PGA Tour all season long. This is the course that is going to reward iron play. I actually think that the Truist Championship played in Philly about a month ago is a decent comp for this place as well. And Sepp won that golf tournament. Sepp's also a pretty good putter of the golf ball. Could not put the ball in the hole at all. Every other facet of his game was good. So I think that this is a really good flop flag spot for Sepp Straka, where a lot of people were feeling burned by him from last week, no pun intended, because the next golfer I'm going to talk about, and this is a great spot to go back to. Speaking of Burns, let's go ahead and talk about Sam Burns. So Sam Burns finished 7th at the U.S. Open, right? If you had just told me, hey, Mike, Sam Burns is coming in off 3 straight top 12 finishes where he's gained strokes with his irons in every single start, I would be like, fire him up, right? Because we play Sam Burns when he comes in with good iron performances. But my caveat for Burns and Victor Hovland is grinding down the stretch of a U.S. Open is difficult. It's grinding. It takes a toll on you. Are these guys like really up for this week, or it's a signature event? No week. If I just go hit my golf ball 300 times, I'm going to get paid. Like I don't know if they are. I just don't. I don't have any way to quantify that. But I know that I already want to play some other guys in this 9K range, and so for that reason, I'm probably going to be off of Burns and Hovland, who, oh by the way, have shaky at best course history. And so I salute you two guys for what you did last week, as well as JJ Spawn at 8,600. Salute for what you did last week. But I will catch back up with you at another spot. Now, heading down the 8K range, Keegan Bradley, former winner of this event, always shows up well in the Northeast. Coming in off of a really good, not really good, but a decent performance at the US Open, right? So when it comes to Keegan, I think he's going to be super popular this week because everybody's going to go with the whole, oh, Keegan in the Northeast, Keegan at the Travelers narrative, right? But what's the major red flag to me is that he lost strokes with his irons. Now, the counter argument would be is he like never loses or rarely loses strokes with his irons twice in a row, but you're going to really be required on a hot putter from Keegan if he's not going to show up with his irons. So that's a little bit of a red flag for me. And like I said, I expect him to be very popular. I think he's a very sensible like top 20 bet or top 10 bet, but chalky DFS play at $8,500 somehow. Now we mentioned the kind of the grading of the U.S. Open, right? Like how tough of a week it is. I don't think Robert McIntyre's feeling that same way, and the reason why is because Robert McIntyre never really thought he would win that event until all of a sudden he was in the clubhouse at +1, right? And Robert McIntyre's profile is great for this course. He plays great at the comp courses. He's coming in with great approach form. He's a great total driver of the golf ball. Historically a good putter. Was putting very poorly at the start of the year. He's historically a good putter. He's now got that back. Love Bobby Mack this week. I think I'm going to be betting Bobby Mack to win this golf tournament. I really think my 2 bets this week are probably going to be Henley and Bobby Mack because I really feel like those are 2 guys whose skill sets could actually allow them to beat Scotty Sheffer this week because I do have a bad feeling Scotty Sheffer should win both races in entire golf. Now heading down from there, I think this is a perfect course for Ben Griffin at 8,100. I think that in one and done, he's a very logical play. Now, he hasn't played well at this golf course, but Ben Griffin has leveled up this year. He's got 4 straight top 10 finishes coming in. He's turned the weakness of his game, which was the driver, into a strength. This is a great spot. Tony Finau, $7,700. Deceptively good Northeast player. Was 5th here last year, 13th here in 2022, and he's playing some pretty good golf. I know the 38th finish at the U.S. Open doesn't really feel like he was all that great. It wasn't bad. I think this is a pretty good spot for him, and I don't think anybody's going to be playing him because I think everybody is going to chase Cameron Young this English here in this range. Now, if I mentioned earlier that this is a course where you can spike on approach and putting and win, one of the first names that probably came to my mind just thinking about those 2 skills is Maverick McNeely. This is a pretty good golf course for Maverick McNeely's skill set. He's a really good look here at $7,600. He's a really, really solid play on DraftKings. Akshay Bhatia, another guy that tends to really show up well on courses with small greens. An uncharacteristic skill set missed cut last week. T5th in his first appearance here at this tournament last year. Really like Akshay. Now, you want to talk about kind of 2 golfers together here. JT Poston. Actually, let's make it 3. JT Poston, Brian Harmon, Tom Kim. On paper, this is a perfect dream fit for all 3 of these guys, right? Like short golf courses, they're all shorter hitters. They're all guys that are generally good iron players, generally exceed at courses where driver is not like the end all be all, right? All have good history here as well, especially Harmon, but they're not in great form. And so if you are a believer in course fit over recent form, then those are guys that you should be firing. Tom Kim last year, he was actually runner-up, lost in the playoff to Scotty Sheffer. True story on this regard. I had an outright bet on Tom Kim last year to win this golf tournament, and I was out on a golf course Sunday afternoon, and I took a look at the leaderboard, and I saw that he was putting to make the playoff with Sheffer. Pulled up YouTube TV on my phone, watched him make the putt, said went and cashed out the bet right away. Because I didn't have the time to do the math on the hedge for Scheffler, and I just had this fear of Scotty Scheffler beating him in the playoff, which he did, and so it was a very good cash out on my part, but almost an outright correct that I could have won on time. Yeah. All right, now from here, we're getting in the true value play range. I really like Harry Hall at short golf courses and easy golf courses, of which this is one. It's a guy that can really spike with the putter. Did not play at the U.S. Open, which I don't think is a negative heading into this event. And oh, by the way, he's been in the top 25 in his last 4 starts. Harry Hall, really good look this week, in my opinion. In the 6K range, I think Nick Taylor's going to be pretty popular because he's a good approach and putter guy coming in with great form. But his history at this event has been terrible. If you want to fade some 6K chalk, that would be a guy to do it with. I really like Thomas Dietrich this week. I know that's like famous last words, but I consider myself a Dietrich guy. I was on him in his win at the Waste Management Open, right? Dietrich is a guy that is normally a really good putter of the ball. And he gained strokes in every single category at the RBC Canadian Open, gained strokes in every category at the U.S. Open except with the putter. His tee to green game was good enough to win the U.S. Open if he putted to his normal Thomas Dietrich levels. So I think this is a really good spot for Dietrich if he just brings his normal putter and brings the same tee to green game from last week. He could absolutely win this event because he does have that kind of upside. After that, I think Andrew Novak's been a little bit disrespected to be here in this 6K range. And then the other guy that I mentioned that I really think is like a spike approach and player. There's 2 of them here in this range, actually. Jacob Bridgman and Matty Schmidt. Those guys are going to make my player pool. Those are 2 guys that can really spike with their irons, with their putter. Really do like both of them. All right, let's talk one and done real quick, and then let's get out of here. So when it comes to one and done, this is where it gets to be really important in terms of knowing who you have left and what events you have left, right? Like in terms of signature events, well, I guess I need to make these 2 bold so that way I know that they're signature events. If you want access to this spreadsheet, the link is in the description on YouTube. There's the Travelers, there's the Major, which is the Open, and then there's the 2 FedEx Cup playoff events. So there's 4 big boy events, right? So you really need to be kind of like rationing your remaining players, making sure you have guys that you want for those 4 events. Those are really where the one and dones are going to be won and lost over the next 2 months, not the other events. It's going to be the big boy events, right? However, this is the one big boy event where, like, you don't have to be a bomber here. You don't have to be a long hitter off the tee. Like, anybody's in play here. So if you're looking for a week to get different, it is a great week to get different, and there's a lot of money on the line. So you can really vault yourself up the leaderboard if you do get it right here this week. You're looking at on my screen right now on YouTube, my screen that one of the one and dones that I picked here in the show, which I'm in with a lot of people that might listen to this. But basically, I've used a lot of my big guns, which is probably a situation that you should be in, right? Like maybe the only quote unquote big that a lot of people might have left would be Xander because he just hasn't been in form all year, right? So if you don't have those big guns, like this is a week to really plan out like who you have left where and want to use where. Like I mentioned how much I love Bobby Mack this week, but looking at what I've got left, I kind of want Bobby Mack at the Scottish Open, right? Looking at some other options this week, I got Russell Henley left. Might I want Russell Henley at the Wyndham? Possibly. I got Ben Griffin left. Might I want Ben Griffin at the John Deere? Possibly, right? Like this is a week to really think about who you have left and where you want to be using them. And in terms of like the elevated events and the FedEx Cup playoff events for me, my best 2 overall players left are Sepp Straka and Victor Hovland. So I'm strongly considering right now making those 2 guys just my FedEx Cup playoff event players and me trying to make the rest of the field work for the next 2 events, right? And so what I'm going to do this week here in this one is I'm going to go with Ben Griffin. I'm going to try to capitalize on Ben Griffin coming in the best form he has ever had in his career at a great golf course for him. So Ben Griffin is going to be my official one for the show here on this podcast. All right. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, y'all. So hopefully we gave you guys plenty of good information you can use in order to find some winners in DFS betting and one and done this week. If you like what you saw here on YouTube, please hit the like button. It helps me out a ton when you guys do that. And I really do appreciate it. It really helps the videos get noticed. I cannot stress that enough. enough. And make sure you hit that subscribe button. That way you can be with us for the rest of the tour season, as well as all of our best ball content for NFL and college football coming your way all summer long. But that's going to do it here for this video, y'all. Hopefully, we gave you guys all you need to know about this golf tournament. As I said earlier, I love this golf course, love this event. Very much looking forward to it. And I hope you guys are as well. I hope that really kind of showed with my enthusiasm here in the video as well. But best of luck to you guys with your DFS entries, your bets, and your one and done entries here this week at the Travel Championship. Thank you guys for watching and listening to this point, and I will see you guys next time.